I know every one of you in the room, so we'll forego the. But my full name is Alan Kent Bratcher, and I've gone by Kent since day one. I guess it's when I was learning to walk or come here or whatever. Alan, and my dad's name is Alton, and so they thought that sounded too. Mom thought that sounded too close together, so she started calling me Kent. And then if I was ever called Alan Kent, I knew I was in trouble. So, born and raised here in Artesia, went to high school. I went to Mexico Military Institute for a year. I regret not finishing my second year, but because my grades suffered it for it when I went to Eastern for the first year. So, but in part of my bio, I put a lot of personal stuff in there that I am a religious man. I belong to First Baptist Church. I'm a deacon there at the church. I believe in doing the right thing. The Bible says, love thy neighbor as thyself. So, you want to be treated like your neighbor treats you, so. Love for this community. Growing up, you think, I'll never move back to Artesia. I'll never move back. I started out with Montgomery Ward in retail, and I was single, and they took advantage of that. So they would move me. I trained in Clovis. I moved to Kermit, Texas. Everybody know where Kermit is? I mean, it's there are some good things and bad things about Kermit, but then they moved me back to Clovis as the store manager, and then from there I went to Woodward, Oklahoma, and then to Henderson, Texas, where I thought I was going to be there for a while. And I had a district manager that was, he would always talk bad about this store. There's this store in Sulphur Springs, Texas, that was just giving me nightmares, and he would just pour out his soul, and it's just killing me. And he called me up one day and he goes, Ken, I want you to move to Sulphur Springs. I said, you've been killing this thing all this time, and now you want me to go? He goes, just go look at it. And just walk in there. Well, anyhow, I saw some obvious problem. And so I came back and I said, well, can you sweeten the pot a little bit more? He did a little bit, but the pot was really sweet when I met my wife there the day I moved in.
Oh, wow.
We met on a Sunday afternoon. She was a school teacher at a little town by Lake Fork, and if any of you know where our fishermen, Lake Fork is one of the biggest bass lakes in Texas. And we met and on a Sunday afternoon, stood out in the parking lot of the apartments for a couple of hours. I asked her if she wanted to come in and watch a movie, and we watched a Clint Eastwood movie. And then our son was born. We named Clint, I think, but we spelled it different. But people always ask, they said, well, how long did you date? I said, well, I knew Sherry for 2 weeks before I proposed. And it's like, what? And I called my mom and told her, I said, I think I found the love of my life, and we're going to get married here pretty soon. She goes, over my dead body. Well, my mom's still alive. She's not a good life, but she's alive, and we got married 3 weeks after that. So 5 weeks total. We got married 37 years here in May. So I do believe that God had it in store for me to move to Sulphur Springs. So I had a young son that my wife's mom passed away at an early age of 60 from cancer, and our son had some health problems, and we were around the Dallas area, but we had no help, no family, and there's a lot of Bratchers here, people related and whatever, so we picked up and moved to Artesia. Sherry got on with the school system, I got on with the fire department here, and I've been serving the community for over 30 years. 17 years as a firefighter, and when I left the fire department, it was going to work for Holly Energy, and I had some time, and my dad passed away right after a couple years after I'd worked. Still got a picture of you at their celebration down here for being. But he served on planning and zoning for many, many years, 20 plus years or more. And I asked Mayor Birch, I said, I'd like to serve if you'll have me. And he said, he goes, I've been wondering what we're going to do about your dad's seat. And so he appointed me in planning and zoning. I got interested in how everything worked in council, and I talked to Ray, our current mayor, and he was decided that he was not going to run for re-election. And so I threw my name in the hat, and I was unopposed, and ran the first term, ran the second term unopposed, and third term, and then I had a opponent. And one thing that really excites me now is that there is some more interest being shown in our positions, and that's good. It's good to see Kimberly and Wade and Tommy and those guys running. I mean, how else do you know? There's a lot of times we'll sit at a city council meeting and there won't be anybody there, and how do you get involved? How do you get involved? You have to serve. So, why am I running? And I'm going to tell one of them, Ray. Y'all recording this? Ray told me, he goes, I hear you running for mayor. He goes, I'd like to visit with you sometime. And he talked, and I was like, okay, I wonder what this is about. So we met in his office, and he said, well, he goes, first he goes, I don't think you're going to have the time. And I said, well, I've just retired. And he goes, oh, well, that solves that problem. I was like, okay. And I said, so what's the second thing? He said, you care too much about police and fire. And that's the honest to gosh words out of his mouth. Serving as a community servant in the police and the fire department for 17 plus years. Plus, I've been on several volunteer departments. I've been putting out fires for over 30 years here in Artesia, helping people with accidents. How could you not be passionate for police and fire? And when I left, and my wife was making more as a teacher than I was as the head of the fire department. And the reason why I say the head of the fire department, at one point, the city went a different direction, and they didn't want to have a police chief or a fire chief. They wanted to have a Department of Public Safety. That worked about 2.5 years, and they lost a bunch of good people out of that situation. But guys, the departments have grown so much in the last few years, and if the city will just allow us as a city to keep growing in those areas. I don't know if you know what an ISO rating is. It's how our insurance is based on for our businesses and homes and whatever. Well, there's a scale from 1 to 10. 10 being the worst, 1 being the best. For the longest time, Artesia was like a 5 or a 6. Kind of middle of the road, and it was numbers. We got down to a 2. There's only several 2s in the whole state of New Mexico, and Artesia is at a 2. We are hanging by the fingernails to stay at a 2. It goes with personnel, response times, things like that. And you guys know our community is growing south, west, north, everywhere, and that has got to play it. And why can't we keep firefighters? Is because number one, we're not competitive with our fellow cities around this area. We're not competitive, and we'll steal one or two from Roswell or whatever, and they'll stay for a while, and then get off the whip or something like that. And then I tell these guys, I said I don't understand you going to whip because you're adding over 2 hours a day for your drive down there and back and whatever. And if you've had a horrible busy day, I mean, it just. But we've got to find a way to do that. And some people have said, well, if we could raise taxes or whatever, or do a bond. Right now, and Jared could vouch for that. Our budget's in pretty good shape. We're in really good shape, and I think we can let go of some of those purse strings and get competitive. Whoever.
And just to let you know, I agree with you completely on that.
We've gone so many years without buying some police cars and this and that and whatever, and it's kind of throwing us behind the curve where I don't know if you guys know that we had one totaled the other day. Somebody got rear-ended out west of town, and it totaled a Tahoe. I mean, to me, it's hard to fathom, but I went and looked at it, and it is totaled. And so one of the big keys about that, and the PY Foundation's, and again, this is one of my sayings, is only in Artesia things like this happen, was concerned enough about the retention of our firefighters and police officers that they gave this stipend for them to stay. And everybody will get that, they're certified, and then that freed up money for the city to be able to give all the other employees some money. Each November they'll get a check for like $5,000. And I really think that if our budget continues to be as good as it is, our gross receipts tax, I think we can do that for a couple more years for everybody else. And it's not because I think police and fire are better, but it's a whole different skill set. You get woke up in the middle of the night and you go from 0 to 100 with your adrenaline. And I can remember shaking because of the adrenaline just going through your veins. And when you get there, 9 times out of 10, whatever you're going to wasn't as bad as what you thought, or everything kicks in. But how to do that? So we've talked about being competitive, and hopefully new counselors, and as we are going through this process, that they'll see that's one of the reasons we've got to do that. We have to do that. You would want people to retire from the city of Artesia Fire Department. In the last, I'm going to say from '88, actually retired from the fire department is probably less than 6 people. I left at 17 years because of a personal disagreement with the DPS director who knew nothing about fire. So anyhow, but that's one key thing. We talk about on my platform is affordable housing. And any of you that have employees and that start at the bottom scale, as you know, as new employees do, if you hire a teacher or a policeman or a fireman at that introductory rate, where are they going to live? Where can they afford to in Artesia to live? And I pulled up at the town hall meeting. I just pulled up a realtor office, and I won't say who it is, but there was 3 houses for Fletzy at $6,000 a month. There was 2 houses for $2,500 a month. There was a couple for $1,250, and then 2 one bedrooms, one for $600, one for $700. That was it. You know, I didn't look into Canyon Stone or anything like that. I was just, wanted some quick information. And so we've got, in order to establish growth, we've got to be able to afford housing. How many of you have been to Portales? It's a college town. They have a lot of affordable housing for these students to live, places for them to go. One of the ideas that I thought the public schools did, and it was they did these teacherages, where they bought some homes around the town, fixed them up, and they allowed these teachers to move in at a reduced rent, and they could stay for 2 years. And hopefully by then, if they could save up some money to be able to afford a house, and get started. I think that's a great one. We have 2 rentals for the city, and our previous HR director before Sandy was managing that, and they were supposed to only stay 6 months. One had stayed there 6 years, the other one stayed there 4. So we've got a handle on that. We've got 2 places. One of them's over there by, it's on Chisholm Street. It's right there by the old police department. And then I don't know which other one's that, but I think we have an opportunity, and I think we have some land available that we could build some duplexes or find some places for new employees to come in. I asked Chief Hope the other day, I said, how many firefighters do you have that live in the city of Artesia? And how many would you think? How many would you want to believe? You'd want to believe all of them, right? How about 6? What if I told you 6?
Out of how many?
Yeah, there's supposed to be 11 guys per shift. So what do we do to fix that? We got to fix it. We've got it. We're building homes that are 300-something thousand. A person making entry wage can't afford that, and they've got to have some avenue to get to that point where they can. And so I that's just one of the things that I'm passionate about is being able to provide that type of housing. Carlsbad's a good example. They have a couple of the stone apartments, whatever Canyon Stone they've written all of, and then there's another apartment complex that's maybe not quite as fancy, and the rent's a little bit cheaper, but they had covered parking and gated community and all that. And I'm like, what's wrong with that? What's, a little bit. So, and the last thing is quality of living. I know John and I agree a lot on this. I look at how many of you have had people that travel to softball or baseball tournaments in Midland, Lubbock, everywhere. Wouldn't it be neat if we had tournaments here in Artesia? We've got hotels now. and throw some money at the parks and get them up to where, if you ever drive by the parks in Carlsbad, it's like, wow. And I know that through our foundation that's so gracious to, only in Artesia, that happens, we have planted that seed. And hopefully the city can take over the rest of it and fix that up. And make that a source of pride. Not only pride in J.C. Park, but pride in all of our parks. And entertainment for youth. I talked about that a little bit at the tournaments and stuff, the baseball. If you ever go out there on a weeknight and watch baseball and stuff, oh, it's amazing. It's so much fun out there, and it's really pretty cool. Other entertainment. What is there to do for a teenager now? We can't go to the movies down in Artesia. We can't really. There's only just a few stores open. There's fast food and there's some other things. But so at any given weekend, there's people that are going from Artesia to go to Roswell, Carlsbad, Lubbock, El Paso, wherever. Thousands of dollars every weekend. Sharing my deal 37 years, and we love going to movies. It broke my heart that our theater closed. And it doesn't matter where you go. If the ticket's $7, you're going to spend $35 by the time you get in there. You buy your popcorn and all that stuff. It doesn't matter. And when it was open, you'd see the Fletsy guys coming in, and they were taking the buses to Roswell, stuff like that. So we got to find an avenue for our youth, and little town of. I say it's a little town, Big Spring. It's by the time you add in all of our extracurricular people around, it's about the same size. But they had a roller rink, and my grandson went to a party there, and the place was packed. And I said, I didn't think this would even go anymore, but it was packed. But we've got to have a vision for. I don't know if this is real public. Did you know there was a teacher's car park from at Park that was stolen the other day?
No.
Had during a teachers meeting at 7:30. This boy walked in, went down to found the nearest purse he could go to, found some keys, went out there, punched the button, figured out which car it was, went jewel running for 4 hours before he wrecked, and they caught him and all that.
Was it a student? Was it a student from Park? Oh,
Was it a TikTok challenge?
right? Oh my gosh.
That's
So,
what we have to deal with now.
It's crazy. And one of the things that I thought I would never do would be substitute teach. I'm like, kid, your temper is just way, you got, and Sherry talked me into doing that back in September when I retired. And it's been the biggest blessing of my life. And I got called one morning to do special ed, and I'm like, she said, I can tell you the hesitation in your voice, and she said, it'll be okay. And I just left it up to the Lord, and it was the biggest blessing in my life to be able to work with those kids for one day. And if I can do that with special ed kids, I can do that with the regular kids up there. There are kids in our schools that are hurting, that have lost parents, and just need a little bit of love, and need that. And that's why I was so happy when the Moppins moved. You guys, they were hard for kids. Jeremy and my oldest son were in the same grade, and my son was the band nerd, and Jeremy was the football hero. But you know, I look at the way their lives have turned out, and my son's doing what he's been called to do, and Jeremy's doing what he's been called to do. But we have an amazing community, and we do not know how fortunate we are. And again, I come back to only in Artesia. And we've got to get, I use an analogy on a Saturday morning at probably 10 o'clock, you probably should have gone down from 13th to Main and not hit anything. There's just nothing open. And we've got to try to generate that and work with the chamber on that and do some things, you know, where we can, people can start opening again on Saturday. But a lot of it is they can't find any help. And the first thing I've asked Rob every time we open a business, Starbucks or Popeyes or whatever, I said, "Where are you going to get the help? Where are you going to get the help?" He goes, "I know." And my parents were in the business 42 years as a fast food, and it's not for everybody, but and it's work. But we've got to have a place for those people to stay. We've got to have a place for those people to live, and that's just my passion. And I look at all the accomplishments that the city's made over the last few years since I've left the city. I mean, we've got all these hotels now. The library was amazing. It is amazing. The statues, the murals, I mean, you take people to probably the first place people take them is to Bulldog Bowl. I mean, you know, they take it and they're like, golly, and then it's just, again, only in Artesia do we have these type of facilities. And I know one of the questions that during this COVID part, I think we could have done some things differently to open up our library and some things like that. And there are some things that I would have done differently and that I plan on doing differently. And whoever gets mayor has got some challenges. There's going to be a brand new city clerk, brand new HR director that we're interviewing today. We're first round of interviews today. And I have some tomorrow. And so there's some key positions in there that's going to have to be filled. And if you haven't been on the council or whatever, and you don't know which guys are strong or which are not, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. You'll figure it out as you start talking to the other councilors and you get put on committees and stuff. But we have some improvement that can be made and streamline some things to make it better. So that's my whole platform in a nutshell is we chose to move back here out of need and again I love this place. I can't even see myself moving. And my daughter would kill me if we would move closer to the grandson or to our grandson. But it happened to my brother. He moved to be closer to his son, and his son moved to Montana. So I'm afraid that I don't want that to happen. But do y'all have any questions for me? I mean that you can think of, or I mean, Kimberly, as a candidate, I mean, what are your expectations of the mayor? I mean,
well, you should have asked me that before so I could be ready. No, I'm just kidding. I think the streamline of communication is the biggest part, because one of the biggest things I've learned as trying to become a candidate, or not become a candidate, but as a council person, is a lot of people are upset about the communication in this town and how things are handled. Now,
Yes, ma'am.
working for the hospital, I understand you can't always give them everything they want to hear, but I think there should have been more, for sure. And I think when they called to ask questions, if their questions should have been answered.
Yeah, you kind of got some roadblocks thrown up. And you know, I'll agree with that. And one of the things that I believe is in transparency and letting the community know what's going on. If you remember several years ago, we had all the I don't want immigrants or whatever that stayed out at Bratcher. And I got a call from Mayor Bratcher at the time, and you know, and I'm like, how's the community going on? You know, and so I really don't remember how the community accepted that.
And
you know?
at that time, there was a panel with Fletzy, with the mayor, with the county, and I think there was a community meeting. I mean, I think there was a panel of, you know, leadership with whoever all was involved, and people could ask their questions, and then they kind of gave them a rundown of, this is where we are, this is where we'll be in the next 6 months to a year. And I thought that was really good, because I think that nixed a lot of, you know.
That's been a long time ago,
Yeah.
right?
They had it in our community center, and I remember going to that, and that was a little bit of communication, but a lot of it was kind of misleading as well.
But you know,
But it alleviated a lot of, you know, I think they fed people kind of what the
What they
PR,
wanna
hear. Right.
the
What they
PR,
wanna hear.
you know, the good PR
Yeah.
stuff.
Right.
I think people understood and they kind of read between the lines, but it's the government. You know, we know there's certain things and that we just don't know how things really work, but they made that effort to actually.
And more of
You can't
that,
make people shut up.
more of that needs to be done. I know the mayor has a radio show every Wednesday after council meeting. I mean, and that's good, but how many times are you available to listen at that time frame or whatever? And
This has been one of the things that keeps coming up is the communication, and like we've talked about it is you know, I used to love getting the Artesia Press, and even though we have the digital version, it's not the same. You know,
No.
and it's not that
There's too
There's
many
something
people
about
who
it
can't do that.
right or
And I learned that working at the vaccine clinic
Yeah.
and trying to get these people to register online. They
Right.
just don't
right. And
do it. They're not in, you know.
well,
They can't do the computer.
As you mentioned that, do you know right now that if you were to go apply at Walmart, you'd have to do it on a
online.
computer? What
They're
if you don't
making
have
it
a
almost
computer?
impossible for anybody that wasn't raised
So
Yeah.
in the late
it's really
80s and 90s.
technology sometimes is one of our worst enemies at times, you know.
there's so much information, but finding good information is
Yeah.
seems to be really hard to do.
But you're right. That's another thing that I used to enjoy getting that paper, you know, Tuesday through Friday, and then you get a big one on Sunday. On Sunday.
Well, and there's more than one line of communication though, and I don't think that's happening with the city that I've seen. And I've called and asked information from the city, and they tell me to get on the website, and the website is
It's trash.
not
Right.
Very user friendly. I
It's
mean, it's
not.
gotten better.
Does it?
It's gotten better than it was
recently.
before,
I think
but,
enough people have complained.
but it's hard to find
Simple things.
information. But
And here we are bashing computers, but we need the computer to work
Right.
better, you know.
Yeah.
Well, it was like last week. You know, it was funny because we had one person going, you know, use social media, and then the person sitting right next to her going, I don't have Facebook. You know,
Yeah.
so you just going. So
Well,
there's
yeah.
got to be more than one
yeah.
avenue. We've got to figure that out.
I know, it reminds me of a story, and I remember Rebecca Prendergast that
Yeah.
used to be the Main Street director. She had an older woman come to her and say, well, I didn't know about whatever was going on. She's like, well, did you hear the radio?
Yeah.
Nope, I don't listen to the radio. Did you get the paper? I don't get the paper.
Right, right.
I mean, she just went through all of that stuff, and there's some people you just can't capture, but you have to make sure that, you
So
put it out there.
I'm almost wondering, do we need like a full-time PR
Yeah.
kind of person?
No, I know that we.
There's never gonna be enough communication.
At
least try.
opinion
and
is
you're
yes,
right. Yeah.
because some of the
Some of these
phone
others-
calls,
Yeah.
like Aubrey Hobson has received, and they go public, they're not good answers,
Right,
and it makes people really upset.
yeah.
And I will kind of go back into the communication thing. You had a group of library moms, and I have two counselors sitting here. I just kind of wanted to get your thoughts on what your perspective on what happened and kind of clarify. There was a group of moms, and they called me because we were part of the library, and they had gone to council, and they wanted the library open. Their kids needed a place to go to grab a book or use Wi-Fi, and PVT did a wonderful job of providing internet access to some of these kids that didn't have it. But these moms didn't feel like they were heard. I think, so I just wanted to get your thoughts on what was your perspective, your take on, nothing was really done. That's what people are saying. Nothing got done. Moms weren't, just didn't feel like anything really moved forward with or they didn't even feel like they were really engaged in the conversations. They just kind of were told, well, we're not going to.
Yeah. From my perspective, I could see their frustration, and not knowing what my fellow counselors felt, and knowing that was basically the mayor's call, and I think there was several of us that said, why. After that, they said, why can't we open the
Roswell and
library
Carlsbad.
at some point?
Yeah.
And I don't know if you got that feeling, but I got the feeling that it was kind of like you're going up against a closed gate, basically, that they didn't want to, rattle the
Well,
fences.
I felt like we had a good plan, and where it started was we were going. We were listening to the governors because we were watching the rest of the state, and everybody that defied the orders just got slammed. And so we were going, okay, that's not going to work,
Yeah.
And so what we as council did is we said, we told the mayor and pro tem that as soon as we get the information to open it at whatever capacity that you can go ahead and open. And so, or to open that deal, and we didn't want them to wait the 2 weeks for another council meeting for us to approve it to go from there. So there's a miscommunication that's happening there. They're saying that the council just gave up our power to the mayor. That's not what happened. But then the second part of that, where I do feel like, because I was getting frustrated and I was trying to help, and so I went to a library board meeting, and I was going, okay, what's going on, guys? We should have a plan, because you were directed to have a plan, and what's going on. And the first thing that the president said at that meeting, he said, well, as soon as the mayor makes us open, then we'll open.
Yeah,
And then,
right.
and then
Makes
Right.
us open.
and so then I turned around and said, no, and I re-explained what I just talked about, and I said, look, this is what was said, this is what was supposed to be done, and 2 weeks later the library was open. But and I wish, on my part, I feel like I failed because I wish I had done that, weeks earlier. But I kept thinking, okay, the mayor's talking to the board, or and I just didn't know. And then to find out that there was just this big miscommunication going on,
Right.
and nobody was picking up the phone call to try to figure it out. And so, and COVID's a nightmare.
Yeah.
It was not a
I
fun
think
thing
we
to
all
be a
know.
part of.
And you still hear that is part of the overall problems that we have going on, but
The communication was a big deal, and it didn't happen.
It was.
And it was somewhere between the city clerk and the mayor, and then the library board and everything. So
Yeah, and we heard there were some issues there on the board level, on the
Yeah.
library board. I think that you could have opened safely, but you had a board member, in particular, David Grosnick, I think was very afraid himself, but I think that there could have been things that the city could have done
without a doubt. And I honestly believe that there was a lot of the employees at the library were,
yeah.
they were scared or whatever that. But I mean, you look how big that building is, and if you let,
Oh, yeah.
to me, it wasn't an issue.
Yeah, so, and we understand, I mean, COVID, it's an unprecedented thing. I think we were all living through that and learning as we went. But I think going back to the library moms, that's kind of the group that we kind of baptized into the library moms. But it really, I don't know, it really showcased, they know a lot of people. And word of mouth in Artesia is a huge thing, and they have been upset. And I think, it's become a big snowball effect. I think people are wanting to get engaged and get to know who they're voting for, and because it's time for a different. We just need different at the city level.
Well, I think that's where it's gotten exciting for like Chrissy to go, on the school board, and I'm gonna, and that kind of stuff, because you can really go on. I got the phone call 2 days before, the day to turn in the thing, and they said, "Do you want to run for city council?" I was like, "No."
I think that's the usual. So I said that about 5 times.
The more I thought about it, and I'm always wondering, why is the city doing this? Why is the city doing that? I didn't go to, city council meetings because nobody goes to city council meetings. And,
No offense, who has the time?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and who has time to be a Boy Scout leader? Who has time to, do all
It's
those
hard
things?
to true
And
wear
you
that
make
dance.
And that's what it all comes down to. And there's those that make time when you can't have it with your whole career, that you made time to help. I do appreciate that. And then there's the people that don't. And I've been really frustrated because just here over the last couple of months even is, well, we're trying to do this, and they're like, what are you doing that wrong? And I'm like, okay, so you have an idea, and they're like, no. And it's so all you hit is roadblocks, and you're going,
Right,
come on,
and
let's make some progress.
that is the one thing that I do think that our new city clerk.
I have a lot of hope there. I have a lot of hope there.
I really do. I really think we were told a lot of times, well, you can't do that from our ex-city clerk, and I don't want that. I want to be able to say, all right, Sandra, how can we do this? And you find me a way or a solution, and then we'll run with it. But I don't want to always be told no, and that's what we were hearing from.
That's what the community hears too, though.
They
can't help it.
And that's what, and so through some other committee meetings that I've been privileged of, there was more of that than what I even realized.
Right.
And being on the council for as long as I have. But I truly believe that with the direction that we made and the improvements I've already seen with Summer where she's at now, she has her job to do. She doesn't need to be over there where she was. The ex-city clerk was right there by the water, so he was always being interrupted, And you know what it's trying to like when you get interrupted or whatever, and so she's moved her office and she's getting some things done, and things are working better.
That's really hard. It took me 3 days to write a resolution because I kept being interrupted. And once you're in that thought process, it's hard to be interrupted, especially in some of those complicated situations, to figure out, okay, there's not an easy solution to this. We're going to have to get creative to be left alone long enough to figure out the right questions to even ask to come to a solution.
Right. But to always be told, no, we can't do that. No, we can't do that. Well, I don't like that answer because, again, there are ways to do things. And I think we just have to be more creative. You look at HOTS, they've been so creative with some of the things they've done. None of the mayor or council's in jail that I know of, so I mean, why can't we do that? Why can't we mirror some of these successful communities?
And Kent, I've got to slip out of here, but one last thing that I think that you and Jared, have talked about, we talked about the grant that was given to the city for the first responders. At first there was some hesitance on whether to take that money or not, which was a 5-year grant for first responders. Mm-hmm. I think that was difficult to hear, is like we may not take that money because we're wanting, public safety is important for the foundation, but it was more out of fear of communicating with the other departments on how other departments would respond to that. And so I think, we do need that fearless leader that is willing to have that conversation saying, well, we've got this grant money and we're going to do the right thing, And so I think we were just seeing the fear in all the counselors and having to address the departments.
Not all the counselors.
Not all the counselors. Not all the counselors. No.
It's hard to be the little voice of eight, right?
So we had a few supporters, but what about the fear of facing the community when we don't have the response that we need from our first responders?
Exactly. When you dial 911, you're expecting the cavalry, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean that
Absolutely.
That's just all there is to it. And until you get a 911 call from your own house when you're on duty, and it's a medical call of a baby choking, you want the cavalry.
And you don't want to put your first responders in a position to choose who they respond to. I think that's the hardest
Especially
part.
in a small town.
That's the hardest part.
That's personal.
Again, when I first started with to see how much this department has grown, the departments have grown. I mean, with the crime lab stuff that we've done, with some of the 3D imagery that they do use for investigating crimes, things like that. I mean, and for us, if we don't do something, we're going to lose every bit of that. And we have fought too hard and to get to this point. We don't need any more roadblocks.
Right.
And I actually think that our current mayor, I was actually accused of caring too much about police and fire. And I don't see how that is even.
How can that be an accusation?
That's like you say you don't care anything about kids. That's just blows my mind. So.
That's
okay.
How can
I
you
did
be a mayor and not care? If you're doing that, then you shouldn't have been in it in the first place.
Thank you, Kent.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you,
It's
Sam.
good to see everybody.
Does anybody, Christy, do you have any questions? Or?
My biggest deal is the strength to stand up against, people. People don't run for office that don't have strong personalities. So sitting in a position of mayor, how strong do you feel with having to deal with a lot of those type A personalities in order to get things accomplished? Because a lot of the roadblocks that we see is coming to a cohesive, this is what we're going to do, this is the direction we're going to go. And I feel like one of the things our town has lost in many ways in various different organizations is a direction, a mission. And not just a mission for the city, and a mission for the county, a mission for the schools, and a mission for the hospital. Like, for me, it's what are we doing as an entity? Like, are all of our missions aligned that we're all moving in the same direction as an entire community? And making that an actionable process. Because we can have a brainstorm meeting and come up with brilliant ideas and ways to get things done, but unless you actually do something,
right,
we ain't going anywhere. We're gonna have great ideas that sit on a piece of paper, and nothing ever comes to fruition.
Right, and I think, right now is a pivotal time, and you missed this, but we have a new city clerk, we should get a new HR director. There's probably another change that needs to be made. You surround yourself with people that are all gonna, not 100% agree with you, but that are positive, and then we all have the same goal. And what I get so frustrated as is, well, why do we need that third fire station at 26th and Hermosa in that area? Have you seen what's been being built out there? And somebody not understanding the fire department, you want somebody there in 2 to 3 minutes.
And how fast fires move.
And
70 mile an hour.
Well, I mean, we had one just by our place across the street from the Roselawn Manor. I actually, when I stepped out the back door of my house, was like, "Ooh, that's a little high. What is that?" And they literally lost everything. And from the time that I saw the flames shooting up and heard the response coming in was significantly different. Like the delay in that was astronomical.
Mm.
I don't know if you heard it, but
yeah, well, and they do try, they track response times and all that, but that,
it's tough.
it's tough. And when you're 10 or 11 firefighters down, you're stretched.
Yeah. And that's, by the way, that's not an accusation that they don't do their jobs amazingly well. But they can't do their jobs to the best of their ability if they don't have the ability to do that job to the best of their ability.
We have. I'm real proud of we stayed with the technology on all the fire trucks that we bought. We got standardized on the ambulances we bought, and all of that. And I think we've got the tools, and we just need
Manpower.
the butts in the seats, but
Yeah.
so to speak, and be able to keep them here. And that's one thing Senator said about the foundation being and offering that. Years ago, there was when you're on council, when you're in leadership, when you're in when you've got lots of money, and it's pretty easy to be on city council or be a mayor or president or whatever, right? But when times are tough and you have to make those tough calls, you're like, oh my gosh, we're going to reduce our city employees' salary by 10%. And where that happened is everybody felt that pain. Now, the flip side of that is we could have probably just cut some positions and kept everybody, those remaining at a whole.
Yeah, I think that's the hindsight consensus that everybody thinks that they should.
No, yeah, right, and so that was the flip side. So, and the PY Foundation came to us some money to help to make up the difference for police and fire. And again, it's not that police and fire are better than anybody else, but they are more critical. I don't know, and I use it. When's the last time you got down 911 to get your trash can empty? I mean, your dumpster. Now, I will say, if you've got water gushing up out of the back of your yard, you're probably going to call somebody on that pretty quick. But
They're all important.
They're all important at the time you need them, but
at the same time, that's a
We're talking
foundation's
about-
mission. It's their priorities. It's what they stand for. Like, we can't dictate what they give money to. And that's kind of the stance that you have to explain to people.
no, and
And it's not what they want to hear, but I can't tell a foundation,
Right.
well, you have to, if you're going to support one, you have to support it all. Well, that's not on our mission statement. That's not our goal as a foundation.
And that's going back to communication again, because that was the first thing that I thought. It was like, if they want to help us any way they want to help us, that's
Thank you.
Thanks.
you.
I mean, that's all we should have said. And then there was this, big hesitation
Well,
of fear of going, well, what if the other departments get upset?
and
Like,
I
Well,
wasn't us
then what
doing
are they gonna get upset about? And
Right.
I'm huge proponent of being proactive, not reactive.
Mhm.
You can sit on a council, you can sit on a board, you can sit there and say, if we do this, what are the negative connotations? What's the community gonna think? What are we gonna hear? And how do we address it before it's even said? How do we address it before they come at us with it?
Right.
So, I mean, immediately when you hear this, you already say, what's the rest of the department's gonna say? The question should have been, how do we address this
Mhm.
that the other apartments will be okay?
And
What is our
A lot
plan?
of that is, I think, having a new
And-
HR and having, and all that. I think all these things, there is good things happening. It's just like you said, Ken. So I'm going, I do think that we're on a pivotal point, like you said, and I do think things.
There are, and I will tell you that when that came down, we got called in by the former mayor, and we weren't really told the whole truth.
That doesn't surprise me.
And so, and again, if I tell you that we're gonna create, the city streets green, I've got a plan and that's gonna happen, and I'm gonna be transparent about it, but we weren't told the full story on that grant and why they, and then, but nobody has since then know that we paid back every bit of that money and gave them an 8% raise. Nobody, that never got back.
So we're not having good communication on the bad things, and we're not having good communication
On
on
good
good
things.
things. So-
Well, and that's,
And
I
I'm
think
so
that's
sorry, I've got to step back.
across every
Okay, thank you.
organization, I feel,
I get
communication.
back to salt mines too.
Right, thanks,
Right.
Tom.
So, sorry I was late, I had a PTO meeting and I'm here and
No, I
that's
appreciate you
iron
coming.
on.
Hey, thank you.
All right.
Thanks for coming. We'll see you all
See
Thursday.
ya.
Thursday. See you later.
Thursday.
Bye.
You
Thursday.
got any more questions?
No, sir, I'm good.
Well, good luck to you.
I'll keep trucking. Campaigning is
That's
fun.
all you gotta do. Yeah.
Campaigning is exhausting. I'm
Yeah.
still recovering.
You gotta try campaigning with 1 foot. So-
Still exhausted. Well, that was my only question. It's not an easy job.
No, it's not. It's
Bye.
not. And there are tough calls.
You too.
And
Yeah.
And not everybody's going to be
Are you
happy
gonna
about
use
it.
it? Next day.
And that's
no, and
Oh, it's dinner. Dinner is served.
it's trying to figure out how to make everybody okay with it, even if they're not happy with
I
it.
think our council makeup over the last 30-something years has changed so much. Because when I first started with the fire department back in '88, there would be counselors that there would be a critical vote that they would leave the meeting and go out, and that's when they used to be broadcast on the radio. They would leave the meeting, the vote would be cast, and it would fail, and then they would come back in the meeting. That's how much animosity was on the council. It was almost racial tension, kind of. Well, it's. I know the night that I was going to be appointed captain, one of the councilmen walked out and he says, "I'm leaving." He goes, "I can't support you. I'm going home."
Wow.
So.
I'm glad that doesn't happen anymore.
No. Well, and we'd stay in budget meetings. We'd meet at 7:00. We'd leave at 2 or 3 in the morning. And we have streamlined our budget so well now that it's great. It really is. We've done a lot.
Well, I'm sure you talked about it earlier and I missed it. Like, what would you say would be your number one goal? Like your number one, if I get mayor and I can accomplish this in my term, I've had a successful term.
Emergency services and the retention of them and getting their pay to where they can be. Second thing is affordable housing, and I've applauded Artesia Public Schools on their teacherages and what they've offered. Why can't the city do that? Why can't we have two, but they weren't being managed correctly. One person stayed there for 4 years, the other one stayed for 6. They're only supposed to stay 6 months. That's just on 2 little ones that we had. Why can't we?
So I understand, like, our teacherages is so that we can bring staff here and give them some time to establish in the community, figure out where they want to
And we give
live.
it to them for 2 years.
We give them to it for 2 years, and then they're expected to kind of figure out, are you staying, are you going, where do you
Right.
want
Are
to
you
go,
gonna buy a house?
are you going to buy a house, rent, give them an opportunity to be able to come in and test the waters without being completely stuck.
Mhm.
And to have an opportunity to guarantee that they have housing when they come here.
Yeah.
That's a
But-
huge
and
thing
and
because
that's-
of our housing
yeah, and
situation.
you
So
missed-
what is the city, how does the city utilize those? Like what's the goal of having like city opportunities like that?
If I'm elected, that's one of the top things that I want to do is get where we can have some teachers. That's just.
Yeah, teacher just sounds good. I don't know
Yeah.
what you would call that for a city.
Yeah.
Like that's
Some
like the quince
some city-owned housing that can be offered to those introductory police, fire, wastewater, whatever that's moving from. But we're fixing to hire a new HR director. What if they come in from wherever? And the one part you missed is right before our town hall meeting, I pulled just got on a website of a local real estate company and pulled houses for rent. And
Don't do that.
yeah, 3 of them were $6,000 a month. 2 for $2,500 a month. I think there was a couple for $1,250, and then there was 2 one bedrooms, one for $600, one for $700.
It's tough when you look online and people start researching coming here. It's not a pretty picture.
Yeah, where we gonna live?
And we paint from the outside looking in, it does not paint the best for our town. And that's some tough conversations.
We gotta fix that. We gotta fix that.
I'm huge support of FLETC, but we have to support other entities too.
Yes, yes we do. And we got and yes, we have FLETC, but we also have the infrastructure, the firefighters, and everything that we're required to have.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Cool. Well, that was my biggest deal. Thank you.
all right, you can shut.
Very much.
You could have shut that off 20 minutes ago.